start these? I don't even remember. We're just going to roll with it and then potentially re-record if necessary. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our June bonus episode of Lights, Camera, Accolade. We are celebrating, of course, Pride Month, and we went back to silent films, actually, to try and find some of the earliest representation possible of LGBTQ either characters or themes in film. And we actually found one from 1919, which is, again, kind of earlier than I would have expected for a full-length movie at the time. Like, I knew that there were kind of short films that had existed prior, but the movie is called, and I'm so sorry to anyone who speaks better German than I do. The original title is Anders als die Andern, which translates to different from the others. And it stars Conrad Veidt, who we saw in Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Haven't done a lot of research, but I do know it deals, of course, with a character who is running up against some of the laws under, I guess, Germany at the time that made homosexuality criminal. So I'm excited just to see how it was handled then, especially because I think as we get later and later in film, we actually see less representation, unfortunately, especially in Hollywood. So this was a nice surprise.
Yeah, maybe worth mentioning. Yeah, of course, yes. Great find and real excited.
Yeah, first everyone say good find.
Yes.
Just kidding.
Give credit where credit's due, everybody. It is not always easy to find socially conscious movies this far back, but somehow one of us always pulls it off each time. But yeah, I was just going to mention, this is kind of an interesting time period, as they usually are when we talk about them, in the sense that right after World War I, Germany was entering a period which was kind of like a little bit bohemian, in particular in Germany. It's known for their vibrant kind of cultural club and music scene and a little bit more openness in terms of women, and I assume LGBTQ people by extension. But as we all know, that doesn't quite last. So maybe this film coming out in this time period is a little bit of a reflection of that openness.
Yeah. One thing, I'm not 100% sure if this is a full surviving print, because obviously when the Nazis came to power, and potentially even before then, this film was already considered very controversial. So many of the prints were destroyed. But there's almost an hour of surviving film. I don't know how much is lost. It might be a situation similar to last month's bonus, where it gets replaced by intertitle cards, but my understanding is the story is mostly complete. I just don't know how much we've lost.
Sure.
Well, it will be seamless for our audience and our retelling of it, of course. You guys will not know the difference. It'll be just as exciting either way. Listeners, welcome back. We are returning to you now from our viewing of a film from Germany called Different from the Others, which released in, I think it was 1919. Does that sound right, guys?
Yeah.
And so, as Sarah mentioned in the beginning, this stars our fella from Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. He plays a very renowned violinist virtuoso in Germany. He's kind of a very prominent member of the musical establishment. The movie opens on him in his nice home, reading in the newspaper about a young man who committed suicide the night before his coming marriage. And, we as the viewers were not quite sure why this is significant to him, but it's very quickly revealed that he picks up on this was likely an instance of someone who was in the closet having to go through with a marriage. In this case, a male who wasn't wanting to be in a heterosexual relationship, opting to take his own life as an alternative to doing that. So that's not explicit in the newspaper article, but for someone like Paul, who lives under the radar and has his whole life, he's reading between the lines and inferring that. So the movie kind of opens on that dark note, a little glimpse into what it's like to be an LGBTQ person in these much more repressed times early in the 20th century. But the movie picks up with Paul meeting a young super fan named Kurt, who's really enamored with Paul's musical ability and wants to become his student. He thinks he has some great potential. And so he sees Paul perform one night and then follows him back to his home and asks to become his student. Paul does so. He takes a liking to the young man, Kurt, and soon enough, their relationship blossoms beyond just teacher student into a romantic band. So they kind of carry on a nice, idyllic relationship. It starts to become bothersome, though, to the two of their families in the sense that Paul, who's again the teacher, his family tries to set him up with a local girl, a well to do girl. I think she is a wealthy widow, actually. But it doesn't work out. Obviously, Paul is not interested. So the family gets concerned by this, and they eventually they get him to go to a sexologist, as the movie calls it. They might have different terminology for that now. I'm not sure. But anyway, this sexologist character, who I think is based on a real gentleman from that time period, he explains to the family that Paul is himself gay and that there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, all the negative stereotypes associated mostly stem from social repression of that lifestyle, and that homosexuality, whatever you want to call it, actually occurs in nature quite frequently in different ways. So he kind of puts the family at ease and also tells us, the audience, which I imagine in this time period was very a big wake up call for a lot of viewers. He puts a lot of fears to rest around that lifestyle. Kurt's parents are also mad at him spending so much time with his teacher. They feel like he is lax on his other duties, his other studies, and their patience is starting to wear on the relationship as well. Parallel to this, Paul and Kurt, as they say, they're enjoying every day. They're walking in the park one day when a kind of shady fella who's watching them for a while comes up alongside the two of them, has a brief exchange. Well, it's later revealed that this creepy fella is named France, and he is there to blackmail Paul. He meets Paul later and tells him, I'm going to break the news publicly that you are gay and in this relationship unless you pay me right now this big sum of money. So Paul, kind of at a loss for what else to do, pays him the money, but it's pretty clear that this France guy is a shady character. He's probably going to be back for more. We move ahead now, and Paul does convince Kurt's parents to allow Kurt to continue playing violin and learning from him, so that's smoothed over. And Kurt even eventually gets to play in a big performance one night under Paul's tutelage. Well, that night, it's in the paper, and Franz, the blackmailer, sees this and gets the idea to sneak into Paul's house and get proof that he's a homosexual, to break the news and kind of ruin his life. Well, as he's in the house, Kurt stumbles on him. They get into some fisticuffs. Paul intervenes and is fighting with Franz as well. And then Franz tells Kurt, young Kurt, what are you so upset about? You're getting paid to be with him too, insinuating that Franz is also, at some point at least, had a romantic relationship with Paul. And it very well seems like maybe Paul is not totally committed to Kurt, which breaks Kurt's heart. So Kurt runs off. They break up, and Paul is very despondent that he's lost this young man that he feels so deeply for. He starts to flash back to earlier stages in his life, like his younger years at boarding school, when he similarly became close to another young man, in that case, a fellow student, kind of sharing over their mutual disdain for their environment and
the difficulty of being away from home. They get very kind of intimate, and an unsympathetic teacher stumbles upon them being intimate. And because the other young man, he's from a prominent family, he gets to stay in school and it's kind of covered up. But Paul, at that point in his young life, is not an established famous person, so he gets thrown out of school. So that's the first instance of his kind of secret double life biting him. We jump ahead and he's trying to make his way as a young man. He's got lots of friends. They're always trying to get him to go out and have fun and meet girls and kind of do the traditional thing. But for reasons unbeknownst to everyone but him, he is just not interested in any of those things. So he seems to devote more and more of his time to his music and whatnot, and lives a pretty sheltered, almost reclusive life, as the movie says. Eventually, it's revealed that Franz, the blackmailer, who, remember, in modern time, because we're back in the flashback now, is the guy who ruined Paul and Kurt's relationship. It's revealed that Paul actually knows Franz from way back. First revealed that he was a prostitute, and then when Paul gets into a disagreement with him, begins to threaten Paul and say that, if you don't go through with this and pay me, I'm going to out you to the authorities. And it becomes clear that they both kind of have, as you might call it, like mutually assured destruction on one another, with both being closeted men. So we jump ahead now to the modern time again. Paul's sister Elise is very concerned about her obviously depressed brother since Kurt has departed. And so she goes with him to a kind of seminar or presentation by that sexologist that they had talked with earlier on. And we're given a kind of Haxon, if folks will remember our Halloween episode, a Haxon like documentary style presentation about homosexuality and the scientific roots of it and the human condition and in nature, and even other topics like sexuality versus gender. Identities are explored in a brief but pretty interesting slideshow almost. So by the end of that, Elise has become a real ally of Paul, and she feels she understands a lot more where he's coming from. Well, unfortunately, both Paul and Franz get taken to court because Franz has revealed Paul's secret double life. So Franz ends up going to jail for blackmailing Paul. And because there's this retrograde law against homosexuality on the books in Germany at that time, Paul also has to spend a week in jail. And this just totally breaks him, because not only is that unfortunate, but also it now becomes public knowledge that he's been charged with this crime, which at this point, being gay is a crime. So obviously his big musical career has ground to a halt. He's now alone in his home. He doesn't really know what to do to move forward. So he makes the very sad decision to take his own life. He takes several pills and kind of drifts off to death. Well, Kurt, his erstwhile boyfriend, finds out about this. He's totally heartbroken, rushes to his bedside to grieve over his body. And Paul's family is at first very upset by this. They think it's inappropriate given the circumstances and how the chain of events unfolded when the late Paul's sister, Elise, who had learned so much about Paul's experiences through meeting with him and going to that presentation, she stands up for Kurt, says that he has a right to be there. And the movie kind of ends with a call to arms to change this retrograde law in the books and to think more forwardly about these types of topics and openness to different identities and whatnot, specifically LGBTQ people. So quite a progressive movie for its time, something that really surprised me, but I would love to hear your guys' take on it.
I think just incredibly frustrating to see these topics of the harm about illegality and repression still being so relevant more than 100 years later. And yeah, just very, very frustrating. I did find out that the doctor, the sexologist in this, so they mentioned Hirschfeld, who he was based on, but that was him. So he co-wrote this and played himself in it as well. And kind of like what you mentioned, a lot of those segments seem to be much more pointed at the audience rather than part of the narrative, because this was such a time where the core message was understanding. And to see, him differentiate at that time between gender and sex and sexuality again, it's just like, man, this feels like something that people obviously really struggle still to grasp to this day. And it just, I was sad and frustrated throughout a lot of this movie.
Yeah, I feel like really interesting to watch a movie from this period. It gets the same feeling for me as like when you watch movies from the late 90s before 9/11 happened, and and it's like, oh man, we really fucked it up, huh?
Yeah.
We were really close to doing something.
So close.
And then
Yeah, because they, at the end of the film, because obviously Hirschfeld is talking to Kurt, convincing him not to follow Paul in suicide. And he's like, no, live your truth, have this knowledge eventually about, these quote unquote alternative lifestyles and stuff be brought more to light for more understanding and acceptance. We'll get there. And not sure if the original film visualized this or if it just always was a title card, but it ends with, a big hand striking out 175, which was the law that made it illegal at the time in Germany. But we know from the informative opening title cards that 175 was not actually fully repealed until 1994. And in fact was strengthened under the Nazis. So like it ends on this hopeful note of like, we'll get rid of this through understanding. But actually it's just like, nope, it got worse. And then it wasn't till the 90s that it's repealed. And once again, we still have all of these conversations today, which is
I feel like we're going to be having this conversation in like 20 years when we look at movies from the like 2010s about transgender, like the place of transgender individuals in society, like just because we get here and then go, well, we were really close to doing something and then we fucked it all up.
Yep. I can absolutely see that happening, which is that's the frustrating repetition of history.
Right?
And I want to learn more about Magnus Hirschfeld and his stuff, because apparently the committee that he founded, it was called the Scientific Humanitarian Committee, where that through science to justice was kind of their quote, which is so great. But they were the first LGBT rights organization in history, and they did campaign for not only lesbian, gay, bisexual, but also transgender people at the time, which is like, what the hell, you guys?
Yeah, I know a lot of that stuff has been lost because the Institute of Sexuality was like, their library was burned down by Nazis in the 30s. So there was a huge amount of research and information collected about homosexuality and like transgender individuals and that sort of thing stored there, and that has just been destroyed.
Just totally destroyed.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was not expecting, I guess, the positive messaging or kind of like the attempt at educating audiences by saying, like, oh, it's normal, there's nothing wrong with them, there's nothing to dehumanize them about. And I mean, this is probably in fault of like media or just like things that we learn, because obviously like when we learn about atrocities and discrimination, like in history, that can sometimes be the focal point. And it's such a shame that this movie was like, some parts of it were like lost, just because like it is such a positive and powerful message. I found one aspect of it pretty interesting when I guess they go to that presentation by Hirschfeld and he's talking about, like the differences between kind of like identity, sexual orientation, just because, a man presents more feminine doesn't always mean he's going to be attracted to other men. It's a lot more nuanced and complex than people think it is. And it reminded me of a kind of like a research study I had done when I was in college. I was taking it was kind of like a developmental bio class, and we were discussing like pheromones, and it kind of played into like gene expression and stuff. And so one of the like researches I came across was studying Drosophila melanogaster, which is fruit flies. And what they did was they had obviously like embryos, and what they did is they sprayed pheromones to kind of alter the gene expression of how certain hormones in the fly would develop once they got into puberty. And what they found out was that once they reached sexual maturation and when the time came for mating season, they had seen that the control group obviously was mating with, opposite sexes, but they started seeing that with some of the females that were exposed to that pheromone that would inhibit or influence certain gene expression that was supposed to come out for male flies. They would see that female flies were pursuing other female flies like men, like the male flies would, and then vice versa, where it was like men pursuing other men. And so like it was interesting to see like how some people think it's a myth, I guess, but it's not necessarily. Like obviously like this was induced in a laboratory and stuff like that for the sake of trying to figure out, more understanding on like how like DNA can influence something like that. And so I just found that very interesting with the fact that like this was in 1919 and they already had an understanding of this, because when I was, doing that research, I remember reading that at that time and being like, wow, this is like pretty insane. Like it's a pretty big find and stuff like that. But then, I mean, it was already here.
That's wild.
This guy already kind of like, there was already discussions, or there was already, like in inklings of understanding of like the more complexities of it and like just the acceptance behind it. I mean, obviously from this standpoint of like the research that I was looking at, it was more of just like open-ended and talking about like the possibilities and how, maybe something like this happens. But yeah, I found that just interesting. Like, wow, way back then in 1919, like they already essentially knew. I don't know. I found that tidbit kind of interesting.
And we're apparently also starting to try and do other types of experiments as well to test those theories. It sounds like, I'm sure that is part of the research and information lost when the Nazis kind of burned everything.
Right,
but they mentioned briefly in that scene, right, that it's like, on animals we try, which animal ethics aside, you're like, okay, wait, hang on,
turning the damn frog's gay.
Yeah, exactly. But very clear that they were trying to see, if they did like X, Y, or Z, would that change behavior? Would that change expression? So you can kind of see some of the same thinking as the study that you're referencing as well, which is interesting.
So what you're saying, Crescenta, is much like the sexologist is pointing out in the movie, there's a biological or by extension natural basis for someone to have same-sex attraction. It's not an abnormality inherently in that way.
Right. Yeah, what piqued my interest, because like, yeah, they already kind of knew this stuff, and here we are in present day, and like there's, I guess, like obviously interest and stuff, and trying to understand what.
Yeah, but
most
so
people
much of
don't.
that is getting rolled back as well.
Well, that's so sad.
Yeah.
It begs the question, what is it about this particular scientific breakthrough or development that humanity has such tendency to backtrack on when it comes to our understanding and acceptance of it? It's very frustrating because I know even, I'm a big history nerd, so I know all throughout history, there were different points in Europe in particular, but lots of other parts of the world where same-sex relationships were very open and just viewed as a reality of life. And there was much less of a binary view towards sexuality. I'm thinking of Greece and Rome and whatnot. A lot of people will know. So what is it about this particular issue that we just can't seem to wrap our heads around? And answer it. You guys have to have an answer to that.
Right now.
Everyone, please submit your essay by the end of
We're going to
class.
solve this today.
Oh, damn.
I can honestly see this movie being remade, but told from like a modern perspective.
You need it.
It's I
It's
thought it
still
was
very relevant.
I thought it was very relevant, and I don't know, I was like in the mindset of like, if there was like in the future some director that was like, I saw this really obscure movie when I was going through film school or whatever, and I just got the inspiration to want to like remake it and show it the appreciation that it deserves, and I don't know. I could just see it just because I feel like the story itself I mean, it is relevant to what is happening today and
it
what
could
people
be
experience today.
updated to a more kind of traditional narrative too. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though I do think it's very like human. I think it benefited a lot from having Hirschfeld co-write it because he seemed to care a lot about this topic and have a deeper understanding of it. Because I was a little worried going into being like, okay, 1990, are we going to see a lot of like stereotypes? Because we see that so often in film where it's still like, okay, remind yourself for the time. But I was just shocked at how empathetically a lot of this was handled. And it was just, even though it was half narrative and half PowerPoint presentation, it still was like, okay, very good.
I thought it was all very progressive, except for the one where it's like, and sometimes women can be men. And it was just a picture of a woman painting a fence with clothes on, and then a picture of her painting a fence nude. And it was like, don't understand what he's saying here. It's like,
I'm going to assume there was context from, because I assume that was all largely from, again, either research or like people who would come to him who, you know, were expressing how they felt versus how they were perceived sort of thing. So I assume that there was probably some context that we were missing there.
It might have been benefited from a title card explaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of it, unfortunately, was like blocked by the Russian subtitles because there were, you know, kind of titles on all of the photography of like, oh, and here's, you know, a group of women in a relationship with other women. But I was like, okay, we can see 3 of the words on this, and we have to kind of piece together the
before
rest.
the subtitles
before the Russian subtitles come in. Yeah,
can't be mad because they preserved it. I'm assuming that because we keep seeing this, it's the Soviet Union preserving pre-World War II progressive materials. So I'm just going to keep believing that.
I guess those are basically all my thoughts. Just, I thought it was good, surprisingly progressive, and unfortunately still very relevant.
I want to see the 149 other crazy movies that were produced in this year that triggered film censorship to come back because they must have been wild.
Yeah,
there was a title card early on that was like just like amping up this movie. Like when this movie came out, there was like a year where there was a deluge of, as Abby says, really progressive minded or provocative movies. And it seemed to set Germany on fire to where they had to crack down on it, much like the Japanese did in a similar time period as we talked about last time. So it's kind of like a little mini tendency film in Germany, but more socially oriented.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was doing a bit of research, I'm assuming one of those movies was, it's called I Don't Want to Be a Man and was released in 1918 and directed by Ernest Lubitsch. So
really?
Oh.
Is it?
Yeah, so
is it Maurice?
Sure.
Maurice trying to make up for all the others?
No, I mean, just from like certain stills I'm seeing, it looks like it's, you know, about a gay man, but also probably touches on cross-dressing and stuff like that. So, but I don't know, I'm shocked. I don't know, I guess because of like the assumption of people back in like the 1920s or kind of like the society ideology around it. I just assume that everyone was conservative and no one really had interest on exploring these matters. So it's cool to know that there were people out there trying to educate and challenge that thinking as well as trying to change that outlook as well.
I think particularly, I mean, again, I don't know a lot about Magnus Hirschfeld, but assuming that he was more on the side of like researching and studying and not part of the community himself, but seeking understanding and acceptance just from a humanitarian standpoint. I think it is interesting that the film is coming from that perspective because so often it's like those stories do exist, but they often have to be told by members of those. Like we've seen it with, you know, our Black history, our women's history. In this case, I would have expected the same for like LGBTQ. It's like they have to tell their own stories, and often they're kind of forgotten intentionally by time or destroyed. So it is just interesting to see it coming from an outsider, like an ally's perspective, ultimately. especially because we know just how much of our art and music and theater like is very much thanks to people of like the LGBTQ community, you know. So it's just like, man, to have them be largely unsung and oppressed on top of that is messed up. So this was just a nice change of pace.
Think about that guy who cracked the Nazi code in World War II, the British guy, that Benedict Cumberbatch movie. And then the British government chemically castrated him after the war because he was gay. Like, and those are just the stories we know. I mean, there's probably millions over the thousands of years of humanity of individuals who are community leaders and technological leaders and everything who just never had the opportunity to, you know, be truthful. And it's just so sad, you know, like, why do we do this to ourselves?
Or they were and then were condemned or erased from history.
Or they were in those little blips throughout history, as we've mentioned, where it was more accepting.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I would just never understand, I guess, the fear around that, or why it makes like the discomfort around who someone chooses to love. Like it's like, it's not your life.
Like, mind your own.
Yeah.
If I'm being charitable, I think it's because most parents don't want their children to have difficult lives.
But they're the ones who make their children's lives difficult.
Exactly.
You know?
You and I know that. But in their minds, if they're kind of retrograde thinking, they're like, this is a huge hurdle you're throwing in front of yourself materially and personally. If you do this, can you just overcome it? But, you know, that's not a battle you're ever going to win over the long term. My family situation can attest to that. I did like I felt I don't want to say I like, but the scene where he's being hypnotized to try to hypnotize the gay away felt very much like the gay conversion therapy that you hear about. Not as much lately, but like 20 years ago was very big.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's still out there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's still out there.
It might even be making like a stronger comeback now. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I like saying that they showed that sequence because it's like him trying to change the way that he is and being like, well, it was unsuccessful. Like many of those pray the gay away type of programs are. Yeah.
I will say from, I guess, a filming perspective, one of my favorite scenes was when Franz is telling Kurt, you know, like, hey, I don't know, he's trying to put, you know, shit in his head and be like, you know what, he doesn't care about you. He's taking money, you know, from you two and stuff like that. And so when Kurt's having that heartbreak on screen, but then Corner's in the back, like getting upset at Franz, and they're kind of like in a tangle in the background. Like I just like the way that was shot. Like it is, for me, it was like such a, like emotionally impactful with him just having that realization. His, you know, his heart's being, probably feels like it's going to fall out of his ass, but then you have the person who's in back, you know, who loves him. And then he's also being essentially like suffocated by this guy who's just wants money. And so I don't know. I thought that was really cool how you have a moment of stillness, but then also chaos in the back. And I don't know. I thought that was like a really good visual representation of what was happening emotionally.
The sequence that I really liked was when Paul ultimately commits suicide. You know, you get that kind of long, lingering sequence on his facial expressions and him going through, you know, taking the pills and then like all of that for, I don't know if it was Conrad's, like his body language, his facial expressions, the way that it was lit or shot, but it really did impact me. Like that's when I got really sad. I was already sad and frustrated just conceptually, you know, about all of this, but that sequence made me just sad about the narrative as well and what they went through. So I don't know if it was performance or camera work, but it did its job. That made me really sad.
There's something about the overly expressive silent era performances that I know we've commented on before, where the actors kind of have to do that to clue the audience along because you don't have the verbal component. but it makes for these really like subatomic reactions as a viewer when you see these eyes bulging and the eyeliner on to exaggerate it. And it feels like it was even more pronounced in some of these German films, like Cabinet was too, where they just
Yeah,
really had
definitely.
it down. And it's kind of like be a cool thing to like if I had like a bar and I had like TVs in the bar, like maybe I would run like silent pictures sometime just because the ambiance would be kind of cool. But one thing that occurred to me just as I was thinking about the movie was it hit me a little bit in the same way as Within Our Gates did, in the sense of the part of the reason this felt very authentic to that type of experience of being a closeted person in Germany at that time, much like that movie felt authentic to being an African American in the early 20th century, is you get to see this lived in subculture world where it's not presented 100% black or white. There's different characters in that subculture making different adaptations and decisions about how to navigate it and to live through it. And in this case, I'm thinking about how Franz is an antagonist and a blackmailer and, you know, prostitute, which is thought of as a negative profession. Shouldn't be, if you ask me. But anyway, um, it reminds me of some of the characters in Within Our Gates who, you know, the black preacher who's having to accommodate to his white community members, or the black criminal character who was the brother-in-law. It's just there's this spectrum of life experiences that make it feel much more true to life, and you can tell that the people behind the camera in those instances are, while this is very much a message-driven movie, it's one that is thoughtful. It's not just ham-fisted. So I liked that about it.
Yeah, I think too, it's also interesting to see like images from like clearly gay clubs and that kind of thing, where our main characters are at the forefront of the screen, and then there's just a bunch of like queer couples in the background, and having it not be remarked on at all. It's just that's where the scene is set.
Right. It's not like Cavalcade, where it's like, look at how skeevy it all
My
is
enemy.
and how wrong. Yeah. It was just like, no, it's just set at, you know, what is very clearly like an underground gay club. People just having a good
bar.
time. They
It's just
dancing.
All the
it's
background
a bar.
actors are men.
Right. I did find, okay, so apparently Magnus Hirschfeld did have a male partner, at least for some time. So yeah, I was like, okay. I just thought he was super woke. I thought he was super woke, but yeah, he did. But his, I guess, presumably lover, because I guess it was not confirmed, or at least one of them that I'm seeing was from Hong Kong. His name was Li Shu Tong, who also was an LGBTQ activist at the time. So that's pretty cool.
Hey, people just, you know, we always talk about we live in a globalized world. It's all unprecedented, how everything's changing and so much exchange between different cultures. Like, this shit has been going on forever. You know, like that's what this whole cyclical nature of expression and repression and everything. Like, we are just, not to drop a controversial movie, but I've always been a fan of Cloud Atlas. And there's that great
I did too.
scene where
like that movie.
it's got one of the best trailers to a movie ever. The trailer is like 5 minutes long, and I remember Halle Berry saying, "Why do we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over?" And it's really so true. And that movie doesn't get a lot of credit. And I won't say it's on my short list for the birthday movie next month, but I'm not going to do that to y'all because it's like 3.5 hours long.
It is pretty long. I remember I read the book, and I feel like I was okay with the book, and then watching the movie.
There are some problematic.
I think there are some. There are, but I think there are definitely some very interesting nuggets in there, you know, but it's just like, damn, this is
in 3.5 hours, I would hope so.
Yeah, and not as many to justify 3.5 hours as you would think. But
I really liked that movie when it came out, because it was right after I became a Buddhist, and I was like, this movie's about Buddhism. I was like telling everyone, like, you have to see it. This is what I'm into now. And they would go see it.
Pirates of the Caribbean in middle school.
Wait, that's Buddhist?
No, just me being like, look, pirates are cool. Everyone needs to see this movie. I'm a pirate now, for real.
Proselytizing it.
Yeah.
I like how Sarah's cinematic breakthrough discovery was like, I'm a pirate. I'm a Buddhist.
It's like living in the middle of a desert. Just like, yep, gonna get a ship one day. It's gonna be real cool.
That last battle with the ship, I remember in theaters the ships going around the whirlpool fighting. That was cool. I don't really remember much of the story.
In Cloud Atlas?
No, and that could have happened in Cloud Atlas, and I forgot. So
it
much
really
shit
could have. It
happens.
genuinely could have. A lot happens to that. We
Again,
do a lot of
there's a
hours,
ship.
I would hope so.
There is a ship.
There's space. There's a ship. There's a lot of stuff going on in that
Look,
movie. Was
that
it
whole
nominated?
diatribe was an opportunity for me to throw a bone to Cloud Atlas, which we'll continue to look for
This whole movie.
opportunities to do so. I'm glad you like it too, Chrysantha. Another indication we have the exact same taste is that we need another.
I'm Googling right now if Cloud Atlas is nominated for anything.
I think it was kind of panned when it came out. Not like people were like, okay, this is.
Well,
this
I think it just had a
definitely
very high budget, I believe.
It was
and didn't
German.
Make it back at
a
the
German independent
box
movie.
office. Was it?
Yeah, and it was the Wachowski sisters, so the Matrix duo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a hell
It
of a
was
lot
not
better than that
nominated for anything
Matrix.
at that Oscars.
About anything? Not even the yellow face? That's crazy.
Okay, can we just
I'm
not
just kidding.
bring
I'm
up
just
that
kidding.
part
I'm
of it?
kidding.
Obviously, that didn't age well, and really, it didn't age well from walking out of the theater within the 5 minutes. I mean,
Yeah,
that was
immediately.
rotten by the
Anyway,
time
everyone
it got
remember
to the
that
table.
Jake really loved the movie with blackface a couple years ago.
Oh no!
I'm seeing some patterns here.
We're here to talk about LGBTQ issues. We're not. We'll leave Yellowface for another day, and I do not endorse it.
That's our review of Cloud Atlas.
I think this should be the preview section for this episode if we release it. And the audience will be like, what the hell?
Like, wait a minute, what? They're like
The
different
listen-
from the others.
listen-
Different from the other. Everyone different from their past selves in Cloud Atlas.
Imagine listening to that preview going, you know what? I never thought about Cloud Atlas that way. I'm going to listen to the whole episode.
And then,
Starts
yeah,
like,
I'm
what
gonna
the hell?
subscribe to Patreon for this.
a little bait and switch for everyone. But okay, Cloud Atlas aside, which the jury's still out on, maybe we will review that in one of Jake's future episodes. But I do think, to wrap it up, different from the others, very good movie, very relevant. Would honestly be down to see a remake. I think people need it. So
Hey, they already did. It's called Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas is not the remake of Different from the Others.
Agree to disagree.
Okay, well, maybe that'll be our June movie in 5 years when we're more in contemporary times.
We're all like aged voices. Finally, we can settle this.
Only talk about Cloud Atlas. Settle this debate.
Now that we have a full comprehensive understanding of American cinema,
of film and cinema.
we've become British and sound like Gandalf.
But we won't be able to stay awake through the 3.5 hour movie by that
Tragic.
point. So
Now that we live in a
unfortunate.
post-apocalyptic Trump dictatorship, it's just lost to media. We really went off the rails here, guys. I'm sorry.
We did a little bit.
So it goes.
Sometimes that's how it is, especially with evening recording.
This is an evening
That's
record.
Jake's
At
sundowning.
least I'm not. This is whatever this is. It's not sundowning. It's like that. Another movie. I gotta just stop. I'll just keep talking. What's that movie where they have to go and shoot the thing into the sun to keep it from solar death? I love that movie.
Sunshine?
Sunshine. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great movie.
for real.
Not
Honestly,
at all
great movie.
related to anything. Like, I
I'm
don't
trying
know
to
where that
think.
came from whatsoever.
Because you said
Someone needs to cut him off.
sundowning.
Cut his mic. Cut his mic. Cut his mic.
Dude, okay, wait, hold on. This will be fun for listeners.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see what the connective tissue here is.
So
Yeah,
Shogun, the Shogun from that, Hiroyuki Sanada, the actor, plays the captain in Sunshine. And spoiler, that was one of the most badass death scenes in a movie. In Sunshine, Toranaga. Like, I have to close this thing to save my crew. And he's like, ah, got lights on fire because they're so close to the sun, so hot. People don't realize without the atmosphere, that's what happens.
So So it was really just connective tissue to Sunshine, not to
I just wanted to talk about Sunshine a little bit longer. But Hiroyuki Sanada's awesome. I'm about to YouTube that scene as soon as we're done. So let's wrap this up.
So let's get going so we can do that. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We will theoretically be back next month for a full-length episode, and is it Jake's Choice? Is that July?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Jake's Choice, will it be Cloud Atlas? Will it be Sunshine? Will it be a movie that he has not even mentioned? We'll find out, and stick with us to see what chaos ensues.